My beloved child, pause here for a moment. Do not move past these words as though they found you by accident, because something has been waiting at the edge of your awareness, something you have felt without being able to name. What you are about to hear was meant to reach you before another voice could confuse your heart. There is a truth moving toward you, and the one connected to your soul can no longer keep it hidden. They are saying within themselves, with a trembling heart and a restless spirit, I have to tell you what really happened, before someone else does. You have sensed the change, have you not? A strange heaviness in quiet moments. A sudden thought of them when your mind was occupied with something else. A feeling that a conversation is approaching, even though no message has arrived and no explanation has yet been given. You tried to dismiss it. You told yourself not to overthink, not to imagine, not to hope too much. Yet the feeling returned, stronger each time, as though an invisible hand kept turning your attention toward a door that has not opened yet. Do not skip what comes next, because the silence between you and this person has not been empty. Beneath it, choices have been made. Words have been rehearsed. Regret has grown roots. And a secret that once seemed easier to hide has become almost impossible for them to carry. Your soulmate has reached a point where remaining silent hurts more than telling the truth. They did not expect this moment to come so soon. They believed there would be more time to organize their thoughts, more time to decide how much to reveal, more time to protect themselves from the look that might appear in your eyes when you finally understood. But time has shifted around them. A person from the past has begun speaking. A detail they thought was buried has surfaced in an unexpected place. And now they are afraid that the story will reach you through someone who does not know their heart, someone who may twist what happened, remove the context, or make you believe that their silence meant they never cared. But their silence did not come from a lack of feeling. It came because the feeling was too great. There are moments when a person speaks easily because nothing important is at risk. Then there are moments when every word feels like it could change the future. This is one of those moments. Your soulmate knows that once they tell you what happened, the connection between you cannot return to what it was before. It may become deeper. It may become more honest. It may finally become what both of you secretly wanted. But first, something hidden must pass through the light. Heaven has watched them begin this confession many times when no one else was present. They stood in front of a mirror and whispered the opening sentence. They typed a message, stared at it, then erased it. They imagined hearing your voice and felt their courage disappear. They even told themselves that perhaps it would be kinder to leave the past alone. Yet each time they tried to bury it again, your face returned to their mind. There is a reason for that. Your presence has awakened their conscience. Not because you judged them. Not because you demanded perfection. But because the way you cared for them made dishonesty feel unbearable. Something about your energy reminded them of who they wanted to be before fear taught them to hide. You did not have to accuse them. You did not have to chase the truth. The sincerity in your heart became a mirror, and in that mirror, they saw every unfinished sentence, every withheld explanation, every moment they should have spoken but chose silence instead. Now the truth is pressing against the walls of their heart. Listen carefully, because what really happened is not exactly what you may have imagined during your loneliest nights. There was a moment when they pulled away, but it was not because someone else had replaced you. There was a conversation they kept from you, but it was not because they were planning to betray you. There was an influence around them, a voice that repeatedly questioned the connection, and they allowed that voice to become louder than their own knowing. Someone close to them noticed how deeply they were affected by you. This person saw the way your soulmate's expression changed when your name appeared. They noticed the quiet smile that could not be hidden, the nervousness, the sudden protectiveness, the way your soulmate became distant whenever the conversation moved too close to their true feelings. And instead of encouraging honesty, this person planted doubt. They asked questions that sounded harmless. What if this is not what you think it is? What if you are more invested than they are? What if you speak too soon and lose your dignity? What if they only came into your life to teach you a lesson? The questions entered slowly, like rain finding small cracks in stone. At first, your soulmate defended the connection. They said you were different. They said there was something real between you, something they could not fully explain. But the other voice continued. It used your soulmate's old wounds against them. It reminded them of every previous disappointment. It made vulnerability sound dangerous and distance sound wise. And this is where the hidden story began. Your soulmate made a choice out of fear. They decided to watch instead of speak. To test instead of trust. To withdraw and see whether you would come closer. To become quiet and observe whether you would notice. They believed this would protect their heart. They thought that if your connection was genuine, you would somehow understand everything they were not saying. But you were never meant to carry the burden of reading a heart that refused to open. You felt the distance, but you did not know its source. You questioned your own worth. You wondered whether you had imagined the closeness. You replayed small moments, searching for the exact place where the energy changed. There were nights when you blamed yourself for a decision that was never truly about you. Heaven saw those nights. Heaven saw the strength it took for you not to beg for clarity from someone who should have offered it freely. Heaven saw you hold back words because you wanted to preserve your dignity. Heaven saw you pretend to be unaffected while your heart quietly asked, "Why did they make me feel chosen, only to leave me standing in uncertainty?" My child, you were not foolish for believing the connection was real. It was real. The confusion came not because the bond was false, but because one person was brave enough to feel while the other was still afraid to speak. Your soulmate now understands the cost of that fear. They see that their attempt to protect themselves created the very distance they dreaded. They thought they were preventing rejection, but instead they made you feel rejected. They thought they were waiting for proof, but you had already given them proof in ways they were too guarded to recognize. They thought silence would keep the situation under control, but silence gave other people space to shape the story. And now one of those people may speak before they do. That is why the urgency has become so intense. Your soulmate recently learned that a private conversation was repeated. Something they said during a confused and emotional moment has reached someone who knows of you. The words were not spoken with cruelty, but without context, they could sound cold. Without the full story, they could make it seem as if your soulmate doubted you, dismissed you, or treated your connection as something unimportant. That is not the entire truth. The entire truth is that they were terrified by how important you had become. They tried to make the connection sound smaller because they felt exposed when speaking about it. They laughed at a feeling that was actually sacred to them. They pretended not to care because the room did not feel safe enough for honesty. They spoke from fear, and now those words may return wearing a meaning they never intended. This is what they need to tell you before someone else does. But there is more. The confession is not only about what they said. It is also about what they did after that conversation. When they returned home, the performance ended. The confidence disappeared. They sat alone with the weight of having reduced something beautiful to protect themselves from being questioned. They remembered the moments when you had been gentle with them. They remembered the way you listened, the way your presence calmed something inside them, the way your energy stayed with them after every interaction. Then regret entered. Not the shallow regret of someone who fears being caught, but the deeper regret of someone who realizes they have betrayed their own heart. They wanted to contact you that night. They almost did. Their fingers hovered over your name. They opened the message window and wrote, "There is something I need to explain." Then they deleted it. They wrote, "Please do not believe everything you hear about me." They deleted that too. Finally, they typed the words they are still carrying now. I have to tell you what really happened before someone else does. But they did not send them. Not yet. Something stopped them. It was not pride alone. It was the fear that once they began, they would have to reveal everything. They would have to admit not only what happened, but why it happened. They would have to confess that your presence affected them more deeply than they ever allowed you to see. They would have to tell you about the night they nearly chose a life that did not include you. Stay with this message, because this is where the story changes. There was a decision placed before them. It may have involved distance, family expectations, a commitment, a move, a return to someone familiar, or simply the choice to close their heart and continue pretending they did not need what they felt with you. On the outside, the decision looked practical. Safe. Predictable. It promised fewer questions and less emotional risk. For a brief time, they considered it. They told themselves that perhaps peace meant choosing what was easy. They tried to imagine moving forward without telling you the truth. They pictured the days continuing, your connection slowly fading, each of you becoming a memory in the other's life. But when they imagined never hearing your voice with warmth again, something inside them broke. That was the moment they understood. They were not afraid of losing control. They were afraid of losing you. And the truth they had avoided became impossible to deny. No other path felt peaceful if it required them to abandon what their soul recognized in you. This realization did not arrive gently. It came like a storm through a locked room. Suddenly, every excuse sounded weak. Every outside opinion became noise. Every delay felt dangerous. They saw that they had been asking the wrong question. They had been asking, "How do I avoid being hurt?" when they should have been asking, "How do I become honest enough to receive the love I keep praying for?" Your name became the answer they could no longer ignore. Yet before they could act, another complication emerged. The person who influenced their fear began to sense the change. They noticed your soulmate becoming quieter, more protective of the connection, less willing to accept negative opinions about you. They saw that the distance had not erased the feeling. In fact, absence had intensified it. This person asked your soulmate directly whether they still cared about you. For once, your soulmate did not deny it. They did not offer the full truth, but they did not hide behind indifference either. They said something simple, perhaps even quietly: it was never nothing. Those words changed the atmosphere. The person listening understood immediately that your soulmate's heart was still involved. And that is when the old conversation was mentioned, the one that may soon reach you. Your soulmate realized that their private words had not remained private. Someone remembered every uncertain sentence and now possessed the ability to retell it. The fear of losing you became immediate. Not because the truth itself is unforgivable, but because half a truth can create a wound deeper than a complete confession. They know how it might sound if someone else tells you first. They know you may wonder why they waited. They know you may ask whether the connection meant anything to them while they were acting distant. They know you may decide that silence was an answer. And this thought has kept them awake. Your soulmate has been imagining your reaction. Not a dramatic reaction. Not anger. What frightens them most is the possibility that you will become calm. That you will listen, nod, and quietly close the door in your heart. They fear the moment your warmth becomes politeness, when your eyes stop asking questions because you no longer care to know the answers. They know you have reached a place where you will not fight for someone who refuses to be honest. And they respect that more than you realize. Your growth has changed the spiritual balance between you. There was a time when you might have chased, explained, or tried to prove your intentions. But something in you has become still. You are learning that real love does not require you to abandon your self-respect. You are learning that connection without truth becomes confusion, and confusion is not a home. Your soulmate can feel that change. It is one reason they are being pushed to speak now. They sense that the window is not endless. They sense that your heart is still open, but it is no longer waiting in the same way. They feel you reclaiming your energy. They feel you turning toward your own peace. And strangely, this has not made them forget you. It has made them see you more clearly. They now understand that your silence is not punishment. It is self-respect. Your distance is not cruelty. It is healing. Your refusal to chase is not proof that you never cared. It is proof that you finally care about yourself too. This realization has humbled them. They have begun to look back at the connection through a different lens. Moments they once dismissed now appear meaningful. Words you said casually now return like prophecy. They remember how you once told them that honesty mattered more to you than perfection. At the time, they heard the sentence but did not understand its gift. Now they do. You were never asking them to arrive without wounds. You were asking them to stop hiding behind those wounds. You were never demanding certainty about the entire future. You were asking for truth about the present. You were never expecting them to be fearless. You only needed them to be sincere. And they know they failed to give you that sincerity when it mattered most. But failure is not always the end of a sacred story. Sometimes it becomes the place where a soul finally awakens. Sometimes a person must see the damage caused by fear before they choose courage. Sometimes the delay does not destroy the connection, but it does remove every illusion that allowed dishonesty to survive. This is the threshold your soulmate now stands upon. They have begun preparing the confession differently. No more vague message. No more half-explanation. No more pretending the past can be repaired with a simple apology. They know they must tell you the full sequence, the outside influence, the private conversation, the fear, the moment they almost chose another path, the regret, and the realization that followed. They also know they must tell you something they have never admitted aloud. They have carried love for you longer than you realize. The feeling did not begin at the moment you noticed it. It began earlier, perhaps during an ordinary exchange you barely remember. There was a look, a phrase, a moment of unexpected peace. Something in them recognized safety before their mind could explain it. That recognition frightened them. They had learned to associate powerful feelings with future pain. They believed that anything meaningful could also become something capable of breaking them. So instead of moving closer, they searched for flaws. Instead of receiving the connection, they tested it. Instead of trusting the calm they felt around you, they questioned why it existed. But the more they tried to reason their way out of the bond, the more deeply it settled into them. You became part of their inner world. They noticed things that reminded them of you. Songs sounded different. Certain places carried your energy. Even achievements felt incomplete because a part of them wondered what you would say. When they faced difficult moments, your voice appeared in their memory, not because you promised to rescue them, but because you made them feel understood. They never told you that. They may have acted as though they were moving forward without difficulty. They may have appeared distracted, unaffected, or focused elsewhere. But behind that image, they were comparing every connection to the depth they felt with you. Nothing matched it. Some connections brought attention. Some brought comfort. Some brought familiarity. But yours brought recognition. And recognition is difficult to replace. This is why the confession is bigger than a correction of the past. It is an admission about the future. Your soulmate is not only trying to prevent someone else from telling the story. They are trying to reclaim the right to tell you who they truly are before you decide who they are based on their worst moment. They want you to know that they are sorry. Not only because you may hear what was said, but because their silence forced you to create explanations for pain they should have explained themselves. They regret every moment you questioned your value because of their inconsistency. They regret allowing another person's fear to influence how they treated something sacred. They regret waiting until the threat of exposure gave them the courage love should have given them sooner. But there is something unusual about their regret. It is no longer passive. They are ready to act. A message has already been written. A conversation has already been planned. They have decided which detail must be revealed first, because they know that once they tell you this first part, everything else will follow. Yet before they reach out, they are seeking one final sign. Not a dramatic sign from the sky. Not a perfect coincidence. They are looking for evidence that your heart has not completely closed. They are paying attention to whether you still speak of love with hope, whether your energy still carries softness, whether there remains even a small doorway through which honesty can enter. They do not know that heaven has already begun preparing that doorway. You may soon experience a moment that seems ordinary. A sudden message, an unexpected name appearing, a dream that feels unusually vivid, or a conversation that turns toward the past. Do not rush to interpret it. Do not let fear write the meaning before truth arrives. The purpose of the moment will not be to pull you back into confusion. It will be to give clarity an opportunity to enter. You are not being asked to forget what hurt you. You are not being told to accept less than honesty. You are not being commanded to return to a version of the connection that kept you anxious. You are being prepared to hear what you were never allowed to hear before. There is power in listening without abandoning.